Hi, I'm Dr. Kelly Donahoe. In case we haven't met, this is my website. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between unconscious bias awareness and FluidEQ. So first of all, what is unconscious bias and why do we have it? We have it for a lot of reasons. It's an evolutionary psychology idea based in the concept that our brains have to go through millions and millions of data points every second that we're alive in order to stay alive. And this helps us when we lived in the jungles or when we were in cave dwellers. However, at this point, it's just hindering us in many ways because those snap judgments are stopping us from entering into relationships, both at work and at home, that might otherwise be incredibly beneficial. So let's just stay with that thought. If you'd like to get more information about what unconscious bias is and where it comes from, there's some resources on my website. You can also contact me and I can give you a lot of research. There's a ton of scholarly research as well as publications in magazines, etc., happening right now about how unconscious bias impacts us in the workplace. So that's what a tiny bit about what unconscious bias is. Right now, the idea of unconscious bias training is really popular in many tech sectors. And a lot of reasons for that is because there happen to be diversity and inclusion topics that continually come up, especially with tech industry, because there's traditionally been a higher percentage of white males who have those positions of power and authority within tech companies, as well as the general population that makes up a lot of the employees that started out in the Silicon Valley. Those demographics are all changing, and tech companies are at the forefront trying to make changes based on the new concepts and considering more diversity and cultural awareness. And all of that seems to be starting with unconscious bias training and awareness. That's great. Everybody loves that. However, I'm here to say we need to take it at least a few steps further. So what I'd like to do is take the awareness from the unconscious bias awareness that people are getting and transform that into FluidEQ. So to take that a step further, we know now there's a lot of research coming out that the unconscious bias training is wonderful, but it's not necessarily taking it far enough. It's helping implement new practices, etc., but there's more to do. And so that's where I come up with the idea of FluidEQ, because it's my mission in life to help people become more culturally aware and to have more full connections in both their home lives, their work lives, and in the greater world, because we exist in all of these systems. And it's important for us to be able to function in those systems as functioning, complete adults, human beings. And so the idea of FluidEQ takes the idea of awareness, education, so awareness of things like unconscious bias, but deeper self-awareness as well. So we'll start with that idea of unconscious bias. There's a lot of tools you can use to learn more about that, and I have those tools, and I can share them with you. Also, then we think about the idea of self-awareness in general. It goes beyond the idea of unconscious bias. It goes into thinking about identity. Who are you? How do you fit into the world? What is your ethnic identity, your racial identity? Other identities such as sexuality, etc., etc., etc. So that's one thing. We learn about self-awareness. We can do that as an individual and we can do that as a group. I can do that with the entire company, or if you'd like to come in one-on-one, that's something that I'd love to work with you or a group. The next thing that we think about is education. There is a ton of psychoeducation that can be implemented to help people move past that awareness phase into the action phase, and also sort of learning how to integrate that into their identity. So who am I is first, and then the second part is how do I integrate that? What does it mean about who I am in the world and how I operate with other people? So that's the second piece, so education. So first, awareness, and that part of that is unconscious bias awareness and training. The second piece is education. So I would provide that education to an individual or the entire company. And the third piece of that is empathy. Empathy training. We know there's a ton of information right now about how important it is to build and grow empathy. And so that's a piece that we work on as well, growing that empathy. And then bringing those areas together, awareness, education, and empathy. And with those three things, you have FluidEQ. FluidEQ will help you to connect more deeply in your personal life and your work life, and also in the world that we live in. Because we don't just function in these individual systems that we live in. We function generally in many different systems. And so these are all things that I can help you with. So that's the difference between unconscious bias awareness, which is something wonderful and important, and how that can translate into something maybe deeper and help us create more connections in our life on whole, and that's FluidEQ. Thanks.